Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, Shane Toven is back along with Chris Tarr, and we're talking about what you don't learn in engineering school. And I realize that you probably haven't been to engineering school, but what you certainly wouldn't learn there. One of those things? Remember to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. What are we talking about? That's coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionics Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel, worry-free transmission you can count on with outstanding control, reliability, efficiencies, and Nautel's unmatched 24/7 customer support. Online at nautel.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host. Delighted that you're here, that you've made it, and we're going to try to put together a really good show for you today. It's a little bit different show. We got a guest who's got some ideas that are really worth listening to. A couple of them are technical, but most of them are non-technical. In fact, we're calling today's show Things You Didn't Learn in Engineering School. Now, chances are, if you're like me, you didn't go to official engineering school because it's not really offered anywhere or not much. Maybe you have an allied degree or allied experience or just lots of on-the-job experience. But Shane Toven, our guest, is going to have some really good advice on making your job and your home life and your personal life better and making those things all work together. And it's really good advice. So we're going to be, and Chris Tarr is going to join us too. He had to step out for a second. I'm Kirk Harnack. I'm in the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, Tennessee. Plenty of Telos gear all around me here. And this is where I work all day and talk to customers and help people, implement Telos Alliance gear and systems. So that's what I'm doing here. It is a typical February day. We actually had some sunshine today, but we're going to get some rain and maybe some snow tomorrow. That's my weather report. Let's jump in and see who's here. Shane Toven is here. And Shane, you are coming to us from somewhere in Northern California, aren't you?
Yes, north of Sacramento. And I don't know why I have suddenly turned into potato cam here again. Man, we did this test yesterday. The show, it tested great, but still we're fine on the bench, right?
Yeah, worked fine. Yeah, it worked fine in demo, worked fine in rehearsal, but not here. Well, the good news is the things that you have to tell us today don't require a lot of bandwidth. They just require a little bit of thinking. So we're going to put our thinking caps on and kind of also put our hearts on our sleeve and understand a little bit more about ourselves as people, as workers, as people who interact with other people, which, by the way, that's one reason why engineers get into engineering. So maybe they don't have to interact with people quite as much. But we still do from time to time. Chris Tarr was here. He had to slip out, but he'll be hopefully rejoining us shortly. He had a little emergency to handle. Shane Toven, tell us a little bit about yourself. At the moment, I think you are between jobs. A lot of folks have known you as an engineer for EMF, Educational Media Foundation, otherwise known as K-Love and Air One. They've also known you as an engineer in the public radio sector. And I don't know, maybe I met you many years ago when you may have worked at Clear Channel. Am I misremembering that?
Well, Kirk, you and I have known each other for many, many years. I don't even remember where we first met, to be honest with you. I went from Minnesota to Michigan to Wyoming and now here to California. So, but yeah, I actually am in the midst of transition right now. I expect to be at some point in the near future announcing my my next great opportunity. So, well, I understand you got something lined up, but it's not public yet.
You and I were talking yesterday, and it's interesting. The group of engineers that tend to know each other, maybe on Facebook or as SBE chapter members, as SBE members, maybe as SMPTE members or AES members, things like that. A lot of us know each other, or through one of the forums. So it turns out that you maybe are friends with one of our recent guests, and that's Tom Morris.
Yes, in fact.
So Tom is an interesting guy, and I love talking to Tom because he has so many great ideas, but they come packaged in a really interesting person, and that's part of what I've learned over the years is, hey, deal with people as they are. Everybody has something to contribute, and Tom Morris has turned out to be one of my favorite people.
Exactly. In fact, he works here in the Sacramento area, and yeah, I've had him over to my house a couple of times, and he's met my big goofball mutt, and a good time was had by all. So,
really awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, tell you what, we're gonna jump into this in a minute. Things that they didn't teach in engineering school. That's a rather provocative title, and I'll tell you, Shane and Chris Tarr and I got together yesterday to do a little pre-show planning. We ended up talking for almost an hour. This was a really interesting subject, so that's why I want you to hang on. Hey, our show is brought to you in part by Nautel, and we got a real quick video highlight here to show you from Nautel. Let's check it out.
Today, every device that can be talked to is talked to, and we basically meet with manufacturers now and say, if it doesn't speak SNMP and it's in the air chain, we really can't even look at it. And we kind of take a hard stance on that because of our size and the need to not be dispatching engineers to be, trying to find out if it's just something needs to be reset. The cost involved in that is astronomical. In fact, Nautel's got so many amazing readings that you can get through SNMP. The MIB is just phenomenal. And so if we want to go crazy, we'll have the entire thing set up in the Relio to monitor every fan, every module, every temperature.
That's just a quick video clip from a Transmission Talk Tuesday episode, and they're on hiatus right now until we kind of get back into the swing of things in 2024. But Transmission Talk Tuesdays are all archived on the Nautel.com website, and that means you can go back if you want to find out about SNMP technology. And hey, Chris Tarr can tell you all about it too. He's really implemented that technology, and maybe you should too. Maybe it's something that you need to learn about and implement yourself. And Nautel transmitters, as well as so many other devices, are ripe and ready with SNMP, and you can monitor so many more things than you can with hard wiring, plate voltage and plate current and output power and reflected power and things like that. SNMP gives you a whole lot of options, and you just got to learn how to plug a few things together and do some typing and then set up some triggers and things like that. So Nautel, go check out their webinars, their archive of webinars and Transmission Talk Tuesdays, like that clip just was, at nautel.com/webinars, and then you can check out all of their all the stuff they have archived there. Thanks a lot, Nautel, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, I'm Kirk Harnack. Let's get into it with Shane Toven. Shane, we hear this phrase work-life balance, and I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of a tired phrase. Maybe you can either jazz it up a little bit or talk about this as it applies to us as engineers. Now, I'm a pretty affable engineer. I do get along with people pretty well, which is why I'm in the sales arena at my employer, Telos Alliance. But plenty of engineers are just by nature are not quite so interactive with other people. Maybe you can kind of open our topic by telling us about engineers and maybe some of the bad habits we tend to get into that ends up causing us some difficulty in our careers. Shane?
Yeah, it's you mentioned yesterday our kind of run through. Man, I wish we'd recorded that. That was the show right there, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, work-life balance, it's a big thing, and it's something that a lot of engineers struggle with. I don't really know of a better way to put it. I mean, we talk about work-life balance. You talk about actually having a real life. I mean, yeah, some people, including myself, it's all about keeping the stations on the air, hustle, hustle, hustle. Get it done, get it done. Well, at some point, you've got to stop and breathe. Otherwise, you're going to hit a wall and you're going to collapse. Even the best engineer at some point will reach their limit, and you've got to come up with ways to kind of A, recognize that that's about to happen, and B, ways of dealing with it when you do recognize that that's about to happen. And yeah, I recognize that in some environments that's probably easier than others. I mean, if you're a one-man shop, you're it. If something breaks and you don't fix it, well, it stays broke. But even in those environments, there are still ways that you can just step back, and breathe. I'll tell you, I've never been so happy as when I realized that, or when I came, when I decided that, I wasn't going to be making emergency transmitter runs in the middle of the night anymore. And I had management sign off on this. They wanted me to come back fresh in the morning, think about it, and understand, kind of really get a good grip of the problem. They didn't want me, going off half baked in the middle of the night, possibly hurting myself either on the road or at the site. They wanted me to really be fresh and have a, have a good perspective on things and get a good picture on things. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about when I talk about work-life balance. Not to mention, family, your marriage, your kids, things like that. It all comes into play.
To make it a really clear example, I think a lot of engineers, including myself, I think everybody has what I'm about to describe in them a little bit. Remember the original movie Jurassic Park? And the IT guy, Dennis Nedry, turns out that was his name. And I only knew that because I looked it up. But we all know what the guy looks like, right? Mm-hmm. And we all know what he had this. He turned out to be kind of an evil guy. But I mean, not that we're evil. I don't think we are typically. But we do have a need to be needed. A lot of engineers, our adrenaline is fired up when we're needed. And sometimes we probably get in the habit of not fixing things or not setting things up so that anybody else with some experience could handle them, but that only we could handle them. And we tend to, and that's one thing about, we always talk about document, and that's somewhat for us, but it's also for others. I mean, what if you get hit by a bus? None of us are planning on that, but what if you behave as if you were never going to get hit by a bus, and some of that for selfish reasons, that they had to call you? And certainly you have, I have, Chris Tarr has, we've run across engineering situations where somebody had fixed it so that only that person knew how to deal with it, knew how to, they kept secrets so they would be needed. And well, that can result in you being over-needed.
Right. Well, and in some cases, it's not intentional. A lot of times, engineers will do that without even realizing that that's what they're doing.
Yes.
But yeah, there are those cases where somebody, wants, they want the keys to the secret sauce, so to speak, but that's not healthy. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for, for those that you're working for. And honestly, it really serves no good purpose, not to share. I've always kind of been a classic oversharer, for better or worse. Yeah. Now, not that I've always been the greatest at documenting some of the systems that I've done, but I try to at least leave breadcrumbs and make myself available if somebody does come across a system that I've done, that I've been involved with, and go, hey, how did you do this? And if I can remember, I'll absolutely tell them.
We're talking to Shane Toven about a work-life balance, and we're going to go deeper into a lot of these things. In fact, some of the things that we're going to touch on are taking care of your physical and mental health, and that's kind of where we're leading into right now. We have some strong and specific ideas about that. We're going to, after the next break, we're going to hit this topic of sometimes it's okay to let things fail. And that's intriguing. I'm just previewing what's coming up here. Also, know your value. And if you're taking care of the basic things, you're valuable, and you may be more valuable than you give yourself credit for. So we're going to help you identify about your value and being able to express that value in a way that doesn't sound braggadocious, right? And then we're going to talk about one of the bad things that some engineers do, and that is some engineers would rather be right than be helpful. And I hope that Chris Tarr gets back in on that, because he had some real good ideas. And then we're going to talk about being able to give grace to others, to put up with people that do not have your expertise, do not have anything like your way of looking at a problem. They have their own way of looking at a problem, and it's probably wrong, but it's their way of looking at it. And so it's up to us to be the interpreter of that. So all that's coming up. Let's get back, though, to this physical and mental health, taking care of yourself first. Shane, why is that so important to take care of yourself, number one?
Well, there's a saying in, you got on, if you take a flight, you always hear the airline announcement that says, put on your oxygen mask before assisting others. Well, there's a reason why they tell you to do that. And you're no good to anybody else if you yourself are burned out, and if you're, just out of energy and you just can't. Okay. And let's face it, we all have days where we just can't, right? And so it's important to really take care of yourself first. And I mean, first, in a lot of cases, that means your physical health, whether that be working out regularly, whether that be taking some time to just, again, back to work-life balance, some time to just sit back and relax, do something that you enjoy as a hobby. Some of us do have hobbies that aren't technical. I'm still trying to find those, but yeah. And then the other side of this is the whole mental health piece, and that's a big one, and it's one that a lot of people don't discuss and don't want to discuss. There's this big stigma around it, especially when it comes to things like depression, anxiety, and various other things. And engineers are human. This is a human thing. This isn't it isn't a sign of weakness or anything. Anybody who knows me knows that I have always been pretty open about this, and my own struggles with this in the past, it's definitely something that you need to pay attention to.
Wait,
I mean,
Shane, now that I'm back.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Chris. Welcome back.
Hey there. Thank you. I remember we were just talking about UPSs before the show. That was Dave. We're going to order 10 of them, those UPSs. Anyway, going back to what Shane was talking about with mental health, there always used to be a stigma, but, I too have been pretty open about it. I'm bipolar. I didn't realize it till, a few years ago. I went into therapy for it, and it explained a lot of, how my moods would change, and, I'd be really in a great mood once and then in a horrible mood the next. And, a lot of times guys don't want to accept that they need that kind of help. And I'll tell you, it's one of the best things I've ever done. I wish I would have done it earlier. I'm on medication, and, my whole demeanor I've gotten better at my job because I haven't let the stress beat me up. And, we all those days that, you feel overwhelmed, and, instead of reacting poorly to being overwhelmed, I can now deal with it. So, it's really important to, not to be Superman and put the weight of the world on your shoulders, and understand when things aren't going well, and that maybe you need some help. And, it takes a very strong person to be able to say, hey, you know what, I can't do this myself. I need some help. So I encourage everybody, that if you're feeling off, get checked. Just go talk to somebody. And, even if there's no medication involved, just the process of talking it out can be a big help.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll share something about my own mental health journey, and luckily I don't seem to have suffered from much of that. But there was a little time in my life, and it had to do with a romantic situation where I just got pretty depressed and down on myself, and I had actually been through a couple of professionals to talk with about this, and I didn't feel like they did me any good. I really didn't. And they were top dollar professional. One was a psychologist and one was actually a psychiatrist. And I didn't feel like I had any good. Well, I went along a couple more years and still felt bad about some things in my life, and ended up being in a small town, being recommended to somebody who was just he was kind of a lay minister at a church. And I didn't go to the church. I didn't know this guy, an older gentleman. And I went and talked to him. And after the first time I talked to him, I felt like, man, I think things are clearing up in my head. Ended up talking to him 4 times. And after the 4th time, I thought, dude, I am so much better. I just have a much clearer view of myself as I relate to other people, as I had relationships with a couple different women who that didn't work out well. And so, man, I just felt so much better about myself. So my point there is, just because you went to one person or even 2 or even 3 or 10 doesn't mean you saw people who could or talked to people who could help you. And maybe the person who can help you is the dude next door, or maybe it's somebody at your church or civic club, or another, dad in the Boy Scouts. That person could come from anywhere, but it does need to be like a real connection, somebody that understands you. Shane, I think you're about to say
That's a great point, Kirk. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got to have somebody that they can talk to, whoever that is. Find your somebody. Okay. There's this saying about having a 2 a.m. friend, the kind of person that you can call at 2 a.m. regardless. If you're really in a bad spot and you know that you can count on them and that they will answer. I mean, everybody needs that. I mean, whether it's a personal friend like that, whether it's a professional, and yeah, if you do have if you have seen a professional and you just didn't connect, well, find another one. I mean, it's like going to one doctor and saying, "Oh, I hate that doctor, therefore all doctors suck." So,
well, and remember too, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I still, after so many years, I still go through, to what I call maintenance, to go over things. And, I find it just great to be able to, to kind of go over just what's going on and maybe some helpful mechanisms to navigate. And, I don't think the journey will ever be over. And, I feel you run into that danger, especially now with the medication where you go, I feel great. I don't need this anymore. And, right. I don't want to fall into that trap. Even if I feel good, I'll still go in, once a month and just talk and just what's going on. And, I've learned some great, skills on how to deal with people who drive me crazy, and stuff like that. And I really do. I think it's turned my view around quite a bit. And I've mentioned it on Facebook and other places. I'm not embarrassed by it. And I think that, more people, who may feel like they need it, should get help, should seek it out. And as you said, keep trying until you find somebody you're comfortable with. Don't give up.
And it's important to know, A, when you're not feeling okay and recognize that, and B, know what your normal is, because that normal is going to look different for everybody. But, it's not normal to just constantly feel like just run down, just drained, or to be going back and forth and back and forth. I mean, that's not healthy. So find that normal, find that person that you can, you can talk to, find those resources.
And I think in our business, it's easy to fall into those traps because, we run at 100 miles an hour every day and we deal with crises on a regular basis. So it's really easy to not take care of ourselves because we're so busy trying to keep things on the air and keep things working that, we eat poorly and we don't exercise. And, none of that is conducive to a, healthy mind either. So, you tend to internalize things and because you have to be cool under pressure. Well, that kind of extends into your personal life as well, where, one of my big things was driving my wife nuts is I always try to fix things. She has a problem, I want to fix it. Well, she doesn't need me to fix it, but that's right. Just my personality because that's what I do. I fix problems. So you have to, kind of get into that,
Do you want me to fix it or do you want me to listen?
Yes, right, I was just going to say.
I had to learn that. Had to learn that.
Something that guys need to learn, because we want to fix things. And it's like as soon as, my wife would tell me something about, this is wrong, I'm thinking about, well, hey, honey, we can fix this. Absolutely, we can fix it. Here's how we're going to fix it. And just listen to me.
Right. I did the same thing. And, so, and not only that, but, I needed to, really with purpose, live a life outside of work because I didn't. I mean, work was my life. And I'm very lucky now. I work with an owner who, this is very important to him that I take time off and that I, take care of what's going on at home. A great example was last week. We had two kind of really major projects during the week. And, he understands it with some of these projects like these that take a lot of brain work and we were working, 10 hours and, I get worn out and he's like, you're off tomorrow. I didn't even ask him. He's just like, sleep in, get some rest, just take a day to recover. And he won't call me. He'll just, I'll take that day and just kind of relax a little bit, but it's important to him because he doesn't want to wear me out and stress me out and those sorts of things. So, it's that whole work-life balance.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting topic, a subtopic for a show. How to train your boss, because apparently your boss is good at this anyway, Chris. But how to train your boss to recognize when you need a break. And I got to say, working at Telos Alliance, I've been so blessed to have fantastic bosses. I hope they're listening. Fantastic bosses that have recognized when, Kirk, you know what? You look a little overstressed right now. Why don't you just whittle your project down to this one? Call me at the end of the week, and we'll regroup and look at your task list. And I've been so blessed to have that. And that's, man. And if you're your own boss, if you're your own contract engineer, wow, that can be really hard to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We're like I said, we have this personality where we would just want to hustle. And that's true, especially if you're in business for yourself. But even if you're in business for yourself, you've got to recognize when it's time to slow down, just pump the brakes a little bit. And that's okay. The opportunities will be there. Even if you take a moment to breathe, slow down, pump the brakes.
All right, we are talking to Chris Tarr and Shane Toven. Shane's our guest. We're talking about work-life balance, but more than that, exactly how it relates to us as engineers and our propensity to want to be able to fix things, make things better. Oftentimes we don't ask for help when we could and should, because we think we should know everything or be able to discover things all on our own. We'll continue with this, and in fact, I want to tease just a little bit. Chris mentioned a UPS, and now his boss says they're going to buy 10 of them. What's he buying? Chris and I were talking about this before the show, and I think Chris has found a UPS that is worth your consideration. And it's not a commercial for it, but during the tip of the week show, part of the show, at the end of the show, stay tuned, because maybe Chris will tell us what he found that works well. I know we were talking about UPSs seem to cause more failures than transmitters and computers and cart machines, if you're still using those. Our show is brought to you in part by Broadcast Bionics and the Broadcast Bionics Virtual Rack. Suncast is going to bring up the website for Virtual Rack. And I got to tell you, I was chatting with a customer and with one of our support guys today about this whole technology of virtualization of broadcast functionality, right? So at one of my stations, we're using a virtualized audio console, the Axia Altus. We're using a virtualized phone system, the Telos VXS, and they're both running on the same computer at the transmitter site. And we remote control them, and they work great. You can also put an audio processor into a virtualized environment. There's different ways to do that. And there's other things too, including not only from Telos Alliance, but from Sound 4. And from 2WCOM, there's audio processing and codecs from those companies that are now getting into the world of virtualization. Now, I got to tell you, this is not necessarily an easy technology to figure out on your own. And here's where Broadcast Bionics comes in. They're like your counselor for virtualization. They have made it easy by creating a product called Virtual Rack. Virtual Rack is on the Broadcast Bionics website. You can read about it there. There's some videos at the bottom of this webpage, and you can see and listen to Dan McQuillan talk about and demo this. There's also a episode of TWiRT from back last summer where Dan spent an hour with us demonstrating how Virtual Rack works. Docker virtualization can be pretty complicated, especially when you mix in audio over IP, multicast packets and networks, and you've got to do things like implement Mac VLAN, maybe even 2 different Mac VLANs. And what's that? Well, I'm not going to explain it here, but it's not easy to implement. But Broadcast Bionics has made it easy. You get the Virtual Rack product from them. It's a hardware, it's a computer, it's a server, and it's got their software in it that makes this easy. It acts like an app store for virtualized broadcast infrastructure. You pick out the apps that you want to run, and it won't let you overpick. It won't let you try to run more than that machine will handle. And they've got 2 different sizes, so maybe one that's right sized for you. You pick the apps you want, you click install, it downloads the latest version, installs it, and then it's ready to go. You give it some IP addresses and things like that, and it's ready to work. You still, of course, have to license that product through its manufacturer. So whether that's Telos Alliance or Sound 4 or 2WCOM, you would license that product separate, from buying the Virtual Rack product, and away you go. You could have a phone system, an audio processor, codecs, an audio console, things like that, virtualized for you. And there's more coming down the pike. In fact, I don't know if I can tell you about them now, but you'll see more products from Telos Alliance at NAB in April, and probably from other manufacturers as well. So check out Virtual Rack, available in 2 different sizes. Deploy, failover, applications, all that is available in Virtual Rack from Broadcast Bionics. Check them out at bionics.co.uk or bionic.radio. Thanks a lot, Broadcast Bionics, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech and making our jobs as engineers even easier. All right, we're here with Shane Toven. Chris Tarr is along. We're talking about keeping your mental health. We're going to move into this idea that, engineers never want anything to fail. Unless you're trying to maybe prove your job security, that only you can fix it, right? Sometimes it may be okay to let something fail. Shane, I'm not sure I understand that. That kind of goes against every engineering bristle in my body here. So
it does, yeah, it
what are you
does
talking
for
about?
a lot of engineers, quite frankly. So I mean, there are times when I wrote an article on this a while back about don't play the hero, right? And we as engineers, you're talking about earlier, we want to be needed. We need to be needed, and we oftentimes want to play the hero. We want to put on that cape. We want to go and dash to the transmitter site, get the thing back on the air. Fix whatever it is as quickly as possible, and just move on to the next thing. Well, sometimes it is okay, in fact, to let things fail. And I know that goes counter to everything as an engineer that we normally would believe. But think about, if you have been fixing the same thing over and over and over and have tried to advise the management or whoever's responsible for, making sure that thing, or giving you the resources to make sure that thing doesn't fail over and over and over, and they've, said, well, I'm sorry, and you've documented that, at some point, you're just not, you really probably should not be continuing to enable that. There comes a time when, yes, things need to be replaced, including transmitters. Is it really wise to keep putting Band-Aids on that 40-year-old transmitter when the ownership would probably be better served by a new solid-state transmitter that's going to be more reliable, be more efficient, and cost them a lot less money to operate? So that's the kind of stuff that I mean, basically, in terms of sometimes it's okay to let things fail.
It's interesting. I had an issue a long time ago up in Baraboo at our big station up there when I was with Intercom, and a contract engineer friend of mine, Rich Wood, the Madison Rich Wood, was helping me out, and he's a great guy. He's retired now, but we had this old, what was it? I can picture it in my head, but anyway, AEL. It's an old AEL, and it stopped working. And the backstory was we had burned out this Continental 816 that I was in the process of rebuilding. In the meantime, our backup was this old AEL, and it failed. So, trying to kind of divide up time here, my engineer at the time, Tony, was working on the Continental, and then Rich and I were working on the AEL to try to get it going. And we were replacing parts. And finally, Rich looks at me and he says, between the two of us, we could probably get this working again, but do we really want to? And that was great advice, because basically what he was saying is maybe it's time to, call the corporate people and just say this can't be fixed. We're done. And we need to do something else. And he was right. We could have fixed it, but good money after bad. And there comes a point where you just have to kind of go, you know what? We're done trying to get this thing to work, because it's, it was older than me. So you're right. Sometimes, you have to let these things just go. And I would have been a hero to my boss if I made it work. And, but at what cost? And you kind of get to that point where it's like, okay, I'm done with this. And I learned fairly quickly that sometimes it has to be an emergency for something to get done. So, I could be banging the drum for, years that this thing is going to fail and we're going to have a problem. And, so at some point I just let it fail. I stopped fixing it, go, well, it's an emergency now, this doesn't work. And, every time I've gotten what I needed. So, Shane's right. We want to be the hero and we want to look like we can make anything work. But there gets to a point where, I use Rich's words, we can fix it, but do we want to, and should we? And, it's a good thing to think about.
A lot like a car. That a car may get to be so old and repairs so expensive that it's not worth fixing anymore. It may be nostalgic, it may have a lot of value to you, and of course your pride as an engineer in being able to fix something that maybe somebody else couldn't. Maybe, wow, look what Chris Tarr did for us. He fixed this old thing. Chris, hats off to you. But really, your job is to help management make the right decision. Is this worth continuing to figure? And what's your opportunity cost? What are you not doing while you're spending so much time fixing something that should have been replaced a long time ago? Shane, I think you're about to say something.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. I'm sorry. My camera and my bandwidth has gone down to potato can quality again. So some cast you might want to switch away from me for a bit until it comes back. But no, it's absolutely right. I mean, you have to ask the question, can we? Yes, maybe, but should we? So,
yeah.
Yeah. And
Chris, go ahead.
I was going to say, it gets back to, I don't personally, and this is also a matter of maturing and, talking and therapy and everything. I really don't need people to validate what I do. So, I don't look for people to go, hey, he got that AEL working. Great job. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't. I don't need that. I need this stuff to work well so we can all have a life. And none of us want to have our life waiting for the phone to ring. So, I could make the AEL work, but it's going to make my phone ring some night, and I don't want that anymore. Exactly. So we're going to replace it.
Exactly.
Something else to remember, most of us broadcast engineers are not the owners of the radio station. I'm part owner of some stations, but I'm not the guy who controls the checkbook. That's my business partner. At Telos Alliance, sometimes I have an idea that I think Telos Alliance should do, but it's not my company. It's not my money. It's not me who has to make the books balance at the end of the year, right? So we need to think of ourselves as engineers. Typically, we're in a situation as like a cabinet member in the presidential administration, whoever that may be, that you may give advice, you may document that advice, you may give some very good reasons for your advice, but ultimately, it's not your decision because you're not the one that has to write the check and make the books balance. However, we all, as engineers, have a responsibility to our broadcast employers to provide the best information that we possibly can, and mixed with our own opinion of what should be done and what the results might be if they don't follow our advice.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And document.
Yeah, and we were just talking about it, and I'll at the end here I'll tell you the UPSs we're getting. But this UPS story is a great example of that, where I was just talking to Dave and saying, I was looking up UPSs that were less expensive and maybe be of marginally better quality, and then I had the really nice ones, and I expected maybe we'd buy one nice one or whatever. And we were talking and he said, no, you know what? We're done with chasing these. We're buying batteries. When they don't fail safe all the time, we're done. Tell me what you're using or that we can get that, I don't, obviously we don't want to foolishly spend money, but obviously we need to spend money to get something that is going to work for us. So tell me what that is. And so I found one, and they're pricey, $800 or so. And he said, great. Where do we need them? And I said, well, look at all of our transmitter sites. And, if you want to stagger them or, whatever. He's like, so that's 10 we need. Let's buy them. We're just going to do it and deploy them and we'll be able to sleep at night and we'll just call it good. And that's where, I could have said, no, this is really the way we need to go with the cheaper ones, thinking that being the hero for saving money. And on the other hand, Dave's like, saving money is great. He would love to save money. And, we always talk through these things, but he's like, on situations like this, where, if we're off the air for 2 or 3 hours, we've paid for that. Because like today, one of our biggest stations was off for 90 minutes. Well, I drove up there and got everything fixed. So he's like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to do that anymore. And if it means spending more money to get the right gear in there, let's do that. I'm tired of just doing it cheap because we can do it cheap. So we've had that talk where he's like, don't just give me the cheap answer because, you think you're going to do me a favor by saving money, because we may not be. He's let me worry about that. Tell me what you think we need to do. Sell me on it. Tell me why. And, I explained to him with these that, we get email alerts and all these things we can monitor. He said, you know what? That's perfect. That's exactly what we need. Sold. And let's get a bunch of them. So, that also is our responsibility as engineers, is to be straight. And everybody wants to be, hey, we can fix it for $100. Look at this. And I'll build this box. And, we all know those engineers who would rather homebrew these things. And, but the reality is station owners don't really want that. They think they do. But then when you explain the benefits of doing it the right way, 9 times out of 10, they're going to find the money to do it.
Based upon my real world experience in foreign countries, I can see now a little movie clip where Chris Tarr is playing the part of the director of engineering of the Chinese multi-radio station group. And the UPS salesman comes in the door and Chris says, "Your UPS have SNMP?" And the guy says, no, says, "You leave now."
Right. Right.
You
I don't even need SNMP. I don't even need SNMP on this one because it does emails and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah,
it's great.
It might be, I don't know, it might be difficulties in doing it. We bought, my group, Delta Radio and the other affiliate groups, we bought a few UPSs that we thought we liked. They had a sophisticated front panel. It was really cool and you could program some stuff and we thought we liked them. But they came with a rack mount kit too. But it turns out they have a real Achilles heel. If the batteries run all the way down, which is likely to happen in a power failure that's more than 30 minutes or so, and at a couple sites we don't have generators yet. Batteries run all the way down, power comes back on, no power. The UPS doesn't do anything. It's dead until you go push the button on it. And there's no way to push it remotely. You can't program it to come back on. I went and did it. And once this happened I did a Google search. I found a Reddit thread, people complaining about this. I thought, wow, I wish I'd seen this Reddit thread before we bought several of these UPSs, and we're not buying that UPS again. So anyway, I'm excited to hear it. Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, the ones we're going to talk about here, I bought my first one, and the only one we have, I bought it more than 3 years ago for a site that's really far away, the Minnesota site. And just because I didn't want to do a cheap one there. And we've had zero issues with it. So I'm really confident going into this that we're buying the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we got to take a quick break. Shane Toven is with us, and Chris Tarr is with us. We're talking about mostly mental health and occasional UPSs on This Week in Radio Tech. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about knowing your value. How do you put a value on your value? How do you make sure that you understand and believe in your value? That's coming up. Also, some engineers would rather be right than be helpful. We're going to look for some correction there. Our show is brought to you in part by Angry Audio. And Chris Tarr, don't get up and leave yet, because I know you have another favorite Angry Audio product that you feel is on your heart to tell us about. So if you don't mind, tell us what's on your mind.
I'm going to sit back down because I was walking away. No. One of the things I want to talk about today, because it actually, again, kind of came up in a conversation, and that's what I love about Angry Audio products, is they solve so many day-to-day problems. And, we were just talking about things that people kind of cobble together and, hopefully they work for a while. These are tried and tested combinations of gear that, are really, really well designed and solve everyday problems. Now, the box I'm talking about is the USB audio gizmo. Now, we've always dealt with, over the years, CPU noise, all kinds of interference coming out of standard sound cards into your gear. Even with things like matchboxes and stuff like that, that noise can still get through, and it can be a real problem. In fact, that's what we were talking about earlier today, where somebody was saying, yeah, I have, they were at an AM site, and they had a streaming computer, and they're like, yeah, I keep hearing this buzzing noise, on the transmitter. And I said, well, did you wrap it around a toroid? And so he did, and it it tamed it quite a bit. And I said, well, what we need to do is pick up a USB audio gizmo, and it will completely isolate that and get rid of the problem for you. So that's one of those things. You plug it into the USB jack of your computer. It turns into a sound card. Looks like a sound card. It has also the jacks in the back for Studio Hub, and as you can see, they're really simple in and out. And it eliminates all of the hum. It eliminates all the buzz and the noise. You get a really nice, clean input and output. And it's built by Angry Audio, so it's built like a tank. If you look at that metal casing, and it's got the ability to mount the box like underneath a countertop or a cabinet and get it out of the way. All of those things you would expect from Angry Audio. So, it's fantastic. It solves a lot of problems, just like everything else at Angry Audio. They're designed to make our job much easier with these gadgets and gizmos. So check it out today. Go to angryaudio.com, talk to your favorite broadcast supply warehouse, and get some more information on Angry Audio. When these problems rise up and they get in your face, don't get frustrated. Don't get sad. Get angry. Angry Audio.
When you mentioned that it has Studio Hub connectors on it, the first thought in my head, that's where they get you. So you buy the USB analog gizmo, and then you got to buy the adapter cables too. That's where they get you for that extra money.
If you don't have Studio Hub connectors, I can't help you.
Well, it turns out they're included. In the box.
Well, that's true. That's true.
No, you don't have to buy them extra. I've used the USB audio gizmo now twice, and solved ground problems that I didn't even realize were ground problems. But took that problem right away. Clean audio. Hey, our show is also brought to you by Max Connect, and this product from Max Connect that actually is manufactured by Angry Audio. They got some kind of deal going on there, Might be suspicious about that. Max Connect's U.192. What is it? Well, it's kind of like a USB sound card, kind of like the analog audio gizmo, but it's meant for a specific purpose for our industry that nobody else makes. Now, I know you can find occasionally a sound card that purports to do 192 kilohertz of sampling and will put out a MPX analog signal from your PC-based FM audio processor, but none of them are really none of them are designed for that, except this one, the Max Connect Broadcast U.192 MPX USB sound card. Yes, it's a mouthful. It has to be, because it's built specifically for our industry. More radio stations now are turning to PC-based audio processors for their FM. And the company I work for, Telos Alliance, we've got one called Omnia SST. We're coming out with another one called Forza that's going to have FM processing available in it. And you want to come out of your USB connection to a sound card that will give you a proper, 1,000% correct MPX output. So then you can feed your STL, or you can feed your transmitter directly if you're right there with it. Lots of benefits of doing this, benefits of doing it exactly right. And that's what the U.192 does. This is a heavy-duty box. It's well built. The power supply is internal. It feels good. It acts perfectly well. You can go to the website, the maxconnect.com website, and check out the specs here, and you will not be disappointed. As it says right there on the website, of course, it works with Stereo Tool. It works with Omnia SST, and I'm absolutely assuming it's going to work with the FM version of Forza that's coming out. And there's Breakaway 1. I would imagine it works fine with Breakaway 1. I haven't personally tested it, but it should. So check this thing out. It's well built and it sounds fantastic. The U.192. I'm so glad that Josh Bone had the idea to build this thing, and Josh knew, why don't I go to the company that's very best at building this kind of stuff with immaculate audio specs, and that's Angry Audio. And so that's how that happened. Check. Yeah, Chris?
See, it was funny. I was talking to Catfish about that, and very few times do I hear him say this, but he said, I wish I would have come up with that.
I did the same thing. I said, you're reading my mind.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thanks a lot to Max Connect and Angry Audio for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, we got about a few minutes left here. We're going to jump into this idea of knowing your value, both financially and otherwise. Shane, you brought this topic up. I think you did. Chris and I can comment on it, but Shane, what do you mean about knowing your value?
So I've noticed a lot of salary ranges that I see published out there for engineers seem to be on the low side. And I think that's probably because a lot of engineers don't necessarily value their work the way that they should. We've kind of dug ourselves into that corner there. So, I mean, I don't know about you, the last time I went to go, look at contract engineering, those contract engineering rates have gone up, and the cost of doing business as a contract engineer has gone up too, between insurance and licensing and all of that stuff. But yet I still see guys, doing the equivalent of the old radio dollar a holler thing. And I don't think that really, serves anybody really well ultimately. So, I mean, don't be afraid to ask for what you actually feel like you're worth. Your time has worth. And especially if you're, going to business for yourself and you've got all the expenses of doing that has, that costs money and needs to be reflected accordingly. Knowing your value just in general, to the station as an employee, it's important to have that kind of self-esteem. And again, this goes back to the mental health thing and understanding that your time and your health, it has value. So.
Chris, your thoughts on this? And as Shane mentioned, sometimes people will post in one of the forums, Facebook typically, hey, here's a broadcaster, here's a university that's advertising for a broadcast engineer for their radio station, and the salary range is maybe $45,000 to $65,000, and a lot of people in the forum are making fun of that, saying, what are they thinking, offering this kind of a salary range? What might your comment be on that topic, Chris?
First of all, they need to stop that, because that's just crazy. But moving on from there, there is also some realities. The radio business is not as profitable as it used to be. Now, that's to say, as Shane says, these jobs are out there and they are advertising those sorts of things. And, there's a very good chance that you're not, you're probably going to be overqualified for that, or you're going to want more money. But, I think that in a lot of those cases, perhaps there is somebody who's a fit for that job. And if not, they're going to learn quickly that they need to fix that. I had a position once where, the corporate people kept kind of shortchanging what they wanted to pay. And we went through several people before they realized that, yeah, we're getting what we pay for. But I think that, a lot of the people who grumble about that, haven't been in the business for a while and don't understand the reality. You're not going to get a lot of these companies paying, high five figures, for engineering anymore. And if they, unless it gets to the point where they, that's the only way they can fill the position. Now, in my case, when I sat down with Dave, and, it's a family-owned group, although they've got 20 stations now, 22. I figured there was no way in heck he was going to meet what I wanted, but I knew what I wanted. And so I sat down and I said, here's what I need. And I said, I know it's it sounds like a pretty high number. And he looked at me and said, A, you're worth it. And B, we're still here. We haven't walked away. So, I think that's the key, is if you're worth the money, they'll pay it. But, I think the other side of that is the more that we get together and grumble about, when these things get posted, I think it's a bad reflection on us as well. Because the reality is, again, there's going to be groups that aren't going to be able to afford anything more than that. And if there's somebody willing to take that job, then great.
Mm-hmm. Shane?
Totally agree. No, I've been on both sides of that coin. I've worked for very, very small community broadcasters. I've worked for very, very large nationwide networks, and I've spanned the gamut. But you just have to kind of know what that value is, know what that number is, and make sure that it's commensurate with what what the work is, and what you feel your own effort is, your own time and value as well.
And that's it. Nobody's forcing people to take these jobs for that kind of money. So if you're not interested or you don't think it pays well, move on. Geez. The most rewarding job I've ever had was the one that paid the least when I was in public radio, and I loved it, and it was very fulfilling. And I had to make some cuts to do it, but I'm sure glad I did. And it was the kind of job where with the money, not a lot of people would have taken it because they look at the dollar figure. But I looked at it as, this would be a great experience.
Short. We have a short segment here, and I want Shane to wrap it up when I ask him a question. But I want to point out a couple of things along the lines of what Chris said, that a good part of what we see online, people arguing about that salary's too low. What are they thinking? Part of our attitude might want to be not my circus, not my monkeys, unless it is your circus and monkeys. Now, one thing that we do worry about is when companies, universities, for example, offer a seemingly low salary offer for a job that we feel we might be qualified for. What does that do? What does that do to bring the C level down, to affect what other companies might offer? Well, this university is offering, $48,000 and no benefits. So there, in as much as it might affect what other people think the salary range should be, there might be some effect there. The other go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
I was just gonna jump in that that goes back to not needing to fix the problem. If that's what they want to do and nobody applies, they're going to learn their lesson that it's broken. Mm-hmm. And second of all, with universities, a lot of times it's out of their hands. I mean, they have a whole board that decides those things. Yes. But that's the other thing I've said is, hey, if you don't like it, don't apply. And if for some reason this is stupid low, they're going to learn pretty quickly when they get no applications.
Yeah. We also know that from organizations like SBE, SBE tries to show every year that if you're SBE certified, people who are SBE certified tend to make more money. Is that because they're certified? Well, it's probably because they care about their career and they get certified as a result of that. But no matter, you can't dispute that SBE certification, SBE membership tends to result in jobs that give you a higher salary. I also noticed, I did some looking here, people who are in IT with an equivalent level of responsibility tend to make more money. And so, in fact, may make a lot more money. And so that's why I've seen people advertise, or people make sure that their title is Director of Engineering and IT. And that's one reason why engineers like you and me, and I know both of you guys are very well adept at IT issues, but if you learn about IT and you can handle those responsibilities as well and even direct others, well, your chance of getting a higher salary, a much better income, really increase by being able to offer that skill set as well.
Absolutely. I just went back and finished my my bachelor's degree, and I'm working on my master's. And guess what? It is not in broadcast engineering; it's in IT.
Yeah. Yep. I can understand that. All right, hey, folks, we got one more quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have a couple tips of the week, including this mystery UPS that Chris Tarr likes. There may not be a perfect piece of equipment on the market, but Chris likes this one. And I'm sure we'll hear a piece of advice from Shane Toven as well. Our show, This Week in Radio Tech, is brought to you in part by Vox Pro. The jocks love this thing, and it's available from Broadcasters General Store. Let's hear about it.
Hey, what's happening? St. John here, coming to you from Command Central, and wanted to tell you about the absolute best partner you can have in radio. I'm talking about, boom, Wheatstone's Vox Pro. Now, a lot of folks have used previous versions of Vox Pro, all awesome, but I want to tell you about some of my favorite new features in 7. And for folks who've never used Vox Pro before, I'm about to tell you why it's an absolute game changer and essential for really fast-paced multi-element radio. Lots of different audio software out there. Why Vox Pro? Because it was designed for radio. It's the only software designed to do what we needed to do, which is record, edit, playback in real time. When I say lightning fast, I'm going to show you how fast you can edit stuff up in Vox Pro right now. Literally 3 clicks on the controller, mark left, mark right, everything that gets marked, you hit delete, it goes away. It's literally that fast. So we're going to take this part right here.
Caller 9.
Boom. From caller 9 to him saying, I'm ready.
5, ready for that secret sound.
Boom. All of that stuff, hit delete, it goes away. Here's your edit.
You are tackling secret sound, caller 9.
I'm ready, St. John.
So one of the best features of version 7, this is awesome. It's effects macros, and you can literally put a chain of effects together so that instead of having to normalize a phone bit and then use noise reduction on it and EQ it and all that, you can literally build a chain. One button, this one's called call right here. I just click that. All of those processes happen instantaneously. Literally saves 80% of your editing and cleanup time. Final thing that I love about Vox Pro, and there's so much more to get into, but one of my favorite things, you can load it on a laptop. I've literally done my show from a hotel room in Armenia to the conference room at, yeah, this was fun, jury duty. Great thing, no one could tell the difference. Vox Pro makes it totally easy. Telling you, if you're looking for the best on-air partner, call my friends at Wheatstone, ask them about Vox Pro, and you will be glad you did.
And to buy one, contact Broadcasters General Store at bgs.cc or give them a call at 352-622-7700. Awesome people at Broadcasters General Store, sharp pencils, and they have great insights as to your delivery and your delivery options and things like that. Love these folks at Broadcasters General Store. All right. We got one more quick item that we got to talk about for just a minute. Some engineers, I've done this, and I know some engineers that do this all the time. Some engineers would rather be right than be helpful. Quite a statement. What does that mean? Chris, Tarr, I think you really addressed this in our conversation yesterday.
I did. And you see this especially online a lot, where people will ask a question or they'll offer a piece of advice, and instead of expounding on that or talking about it, they dig their heels in and say, no, this is the way it has to be. And they're not real helpful about it. It's just, no, I don't agree and you're wrong. And that's a crazy thing. It's sometimes it's better to be helpful than to be right and go, you know what? I think there's something to what you're saying there. Now, here's what I think. And, I think that this might be a better option or, whatever it is. But, it's so much easier to try and be helpful and say, well, how can I help you figure this out rather than you're wrong and I'm right and move on. Or argue and say, if you wouldn't have done this and done that. And, I had a coworker like that who just reveled in the fact that I would make a mistake. And, waiting for the time for me to make a mistake and be right there. And, I always say, and again, we're very guilty of this online, is, if you're not going to say anything nice, then don't say anything. Somebody will post something about, or a picture of their site or, something talking about something you do. And immediately everybody jumps on this person to prove that they're right. Hey, look, I'm smarter than you. This is how you were wrong. And, instead of just saying, hey, that's awesome. Have you ever thought about getting, these Velcro zip ties to clean things up or, something like that? That's helpful instead of, oh, that wiring's a mess. Yeah. So that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah. Shane, do you have a thought on that? Go ahead.
Yeah, there's an old proverb. It's first seek to understand, and that's kind of where I try to come from whenever I approach people. Is don't ever be the smartest person in the room. You want to listen to where the other person is coming from. Try to understand what the actual problem is, rather than just jumping right down their throat and trying to suggest things. Again, back to that. Do you want me to solve the problem or do you want me to listen? Kind of thing. So. This difference becomes apparent when an engineer like the three of us, and I would suggest that the three of us probably have really similar approaches to various problems. Yeah, we might take a little different tacks or have different experiences for solving it. But if any of us talk to the imaging person, the midday jock, maybe, if you talk to somebody who's in the talent area exclusively and they're not into engineering, it's a very different conversation. It's a very different perspective on whatever is wrong. And I have a morning man that I talk with fairly frequently. And I mean, the engineer in me just wants to say, no, shut up, I'll solve the problem. But the human in me wants to say, listen to him. This is his perspective, and maybe I can learn something about what his problem is with what's going wrong.
And as we mentioned as we mentioned yesterday, when we were talking about all this, it's empowering to those people to treat them as equals and to explain what you're doing, even if they may have a different idea on it, to explain what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing and why you think. It's very empowering to them because, they're intimidated by people, everybody's intimidated by people who seem to know more than they do. So when you can kind of make that ground feel equal, you're going to get a lot more cooperation.
Yeah, you kind of have to learn to be multilingual, so to speak, in terms of you have to speak engineer, you have to speak human, you have to speak manager, you have to speak talent, so.
Okay. Drum roll. It's time for Chris to reveal his tip of the week, and it starts with the word Schneider. Chris?
Yes. Well, Schneider, it's actually now APC. And, everybody, UPSs are like blondes and brunettes. Everybody has their preferences, ones they love, ones they hate, brands they love, brands they hate. This is just one that I've had one of these at one of my sites for years without a single issue. And it's been just really helpful because it emails you status. You can log into it remotely in a portal and see what's going on. It's the APC 1500 Smart UPS with Smart Connect. And the model number is SMC 1500. And it's a rack mount UPS. And again, what's great is you log into this portal and you can actually trigger each outlet individually. You can reboot the entire thing. It tells you battery life. It tells you the status of when you need to change them. It keeps a log if you have any issues. And again, it emails you when there's problems. So I've never had the thing die. I've never had it lock up or anything else. So it's just been really great. So we ended up, and this is what we're talking about, where, when he talked about buying cheap ones, he's like, no, let's just do this right. These are $694 on Amazon. We just bought 10 of them. So I now have a project to put in 10 of these at our sites. Can't hear you there, Kirk. Kirk, you're muted.
Of course, sorry. All right. It'd be great if they had one that was bigger than 1,500. I like one that's about 2,500 or 3,000 and rack mountable. But I guess this series doesn't have that.
Yeah, I would bet they have a series that's higher power than that. I bet if you look.
They do.
Oh, they do. Here's a 1,500 for $1,183 with that Smart Connect. I wonder if the Smart Connect, does it imply that you can remotely control the power outlets? Does that imply that? Okay.
Yeah, there is an additional plan you have to sign up for to do the remote control outlets, but it's very affordable. I think I just paid $60 for 3 years or something.
Okay.
It's a subscription thing.
Nice. Okay. All right. Cool. We'll put that in the show notes. Thanks a lot. And we're out of time. But Shane, do you have a tip of the week we might enjoy?
I do. And in fact, you had it as number 6 on the list. And I would just say, give grace to others.
Yes.
And that applies on so many levels. We're not all right. Nobody's always right. So give grace to others.
We'll find something pithy and worthwhile to say about that. Thanks very much, guys. We got to go. We have overextended our welcome, but I'm glad we were all here. So thanks very much, Chris Tarr, our co-host, Shane Toven. Thank you very much for joining us and prompting this conversation about things you don't learn in engineering school, but every one of us needs to know. Appreciate it. Thanks to Suncast, who produces every one of our shows This Week in Radio Tech. And I promise you, watch for some highlight clips coming up soon to be shown on our YouTube page. We'll try to share them out on Facebook as well, but we will have some highlight clips for you just to make it easier for you to go review something that you saw that was really good. We got to run. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye. Be great if they had one that was bigger than 1,500. I like one that's about 2,500 or 3,000 and rack mountable. But I guess this series doesn't have that.
Yeah, I would bet they have a series that's higher power than that. I bet if you look.
They do.
Oh, they do. Here's a 1,500 for $1,183 with that Smart Connect. I wonder if the Smart Connect, does it imply that you can remotely control the power outlets? Does that imply that? Okay.
Yeah, there is an additional plan you have to sign up for to do the remote control outlets, but it's very affordable. I think I just paid $60 for 3 years or something.
Okay.
I mean, it's a subscription thing.
Nice. Okay. All right, cool. We'll put that in the show notes. Thanks a lot. And we're out of time, but Shane, do you have a tip of the week we might enjoy?
I do. And in fact, you had it as number 6 on the list. And I would just say, give grace to others.
Yes.
And that applies on so many levels. I mean, we're not all right. Nobody's always right. So give grace to others.
We'll find something pithy and worthwhile to say about that. Thanks very much, guys. We got to go. We have overextended our welcome, but I'm glad we were all here. So thanks very much, Chris Tarr, our co-host, Shane Toven. Thank you very much for joining us and prompting this conversation about things you don't learn in engineering school, but every one of us needs to know. Appreciate it. Thanks to Suncast, who produces every one of our shows This Week in Radio Tech. And I promise you, watch for some highlight clips coming up soon to be shown on our YouTube page. We'll try to share them out on Facebook as well, but we will have some highlight clips for you just to make it easier for you to go review something that you saw that was really good. We got to run. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.